Good evening. Good evening. All right, so we're going to get started with our program this evening. It's good to see all of you, and please feel free to find a seat. There are plenty of chairs here, plenty of space to sit. Yeah, please make yourselves comfortable. Welcome to Baker Ripley House. My name is Bolivar Fraga. I know several of you, and you know me as Bo. That's my nickname, so feel free to call me Bolivar or Bo. I work for the organization. I'm the senior manager of civic engagement, and I also have the privilege of being a board member for Buffalo Bayou Partnership. So I feel very fortunate because these are two great organizations. And on behalf of Baker Ripley, I want to say thank you to Buffalo Bayou Partnership for thinking of us as the host, and we're very glad to be part of this. It's such an important project, something so good for our city, for our whole community. I also live in the East End. I'm not too far from here. I can walk here, so when it starts getting cooler, I know it seems like it started to trend that way with our weather. I'm going to start walking more, but I'm very close to here. So the fact that we're here at Buffalo Bayou East is really great on a very personal level. Ripley House and Baker Ripley exist for this very purpose of helping bring the community together to be a place where we can dialogue, all for the common good. So again, on behalf of our organization, welcome this evening. We know it's going to be just a wonderful report about the progress that Buffalo Bayou has been making on this great project. We invite you to come back. Ripley House is a home for you. Our organization is bakerripley.org. Please look us up. Again, you're welcome to come here and see what else we're doing, also to volunteer with us. So with that, I'd like to invite to the microphone the chair of our organization, and that's Ms. Drexler, Ms. Gaynell Drexler. Please welcome her with a round of applause. Thank you all.
Thank you so much to Baker Ripley for having us here this evening. Welcome, everyone. I am Gaynell Floyd Drexler. I'm board chair of Buffalo Bayou Partnership. We're delighted to have you here tonight as we share exciting updates on the work happening along the banks of Buffalo Bayou, east of downtown. The work is all made possible thanks to an extraordinary public-private partnership involving the Kinder Foundation, the City of Houston, Harris County, and Buffalo Bayou Partnership. We want to extend our utmost gratitude to our partners for their support, and we want to offer our special thanks to the Houston Parks and Recreation Department for their ongoing collaboration. We have some officials here with us tonight and partners that I would like to acknowledge. And please stand when I introduce you. An at-large Houston City Council member, Julian Ramirez, or a representative from that office. We also have Russell Etherton, representing Houston City Council member Mario Castillo. In the back. We have Leah Wolfthal with Council member Julian Ramirez's office. Thank you, Leah. And we have Willie Davis, Houston City Council member at large, position 2. Thank you all so very much for being here. And now we would like to share a short video before you hear from our team at Buffalo Bayou Partnership. Thank you.
For more than 3 decades, Buffalo Bayou Partnership has been leading the transformation, activation, and ongoing stewardship of Buffalo Bayou. From award-winning projects like Buffalo Bayou Park, to an innovative waterway cleanup program, inspiring public art, and engaging events, the organization is creating a dynamic network of welcoming and inclusive public spaces along 10 miles of Houston's waterfront.
Buffalo Bayou Partnership is now branching out to exciting new destinations in culturally rich and diverse neighborhoods east of downtown. This is being made possible thanks to an extraordinary public-private partnership with the City of Houston and Harris County anchored by a historic gift from the Kinder Foundation and critical input from thousands of Houstonians. While our core mission will always be focused on parks and trails, our Buffalo Bayou East work demonstrates new ways of thinking about public space and community planning. We'll be repurposing unique industrial sites like this former barge terminal into recreational and cultural destinations for the entire community. These sites also offer small business opportunities to ensure we deliver just not environmental improvements, but economic benefits as well.
I purposely standing behind the stage so I wouldn't have to look at myself. Welcome everyone. We're really excited to have so many people here. We've been rather quiet over the last 2 years, and we felt it was time that we really got out into the community to update you on all of the progress that we've made. And some things that didn't come through in the video, the Buffalo Bayou East Plan is really a 20-year vision for our historic waterway. Eventually, our organization wants to get from Buffalo Bayou Park all the way to the Port of Houston Turning Basin. But tonight, we're going to focus on our 10-year plan, which is from US 59 to just a little bit east of Lockwood Drive. And again, the project will be completed in 10 years. We started this design and planning work in 2022, and it will be completed by the year 2032. And the reason I say that, and I'm very comfortable in saying that, is because we have signed on the dotted line with our partners, the city, the county, and the Kinder Foundation. So I also wanted to highlight the fact, and I think we're going to go on to the next slide, all of the community engagement and outreach that we did, not just for the master plan itself, but for all the projects that you're going to see tonight. We did a lot with social media. All of our materials were bilingual. We had major community meetings. The very first meeting that we had was actually here at Ripley House, and we had about the same number of people that we have here tonight. After we held these major community meetings, both in the East End and the Fifth Ward, we went out into the community and went to super neighborhood meetings, civic association meetings, and then we had these follow-up meetings that focused on specific topics or specific park projects. So we held one meeting out at Tony Marone Park with the local PTO groups and invited children to come and give us their ideas of what they wanted to see in Tony Marone Park. And later in the program, you'll see how some of their ideas have been incorporated into the designs of the park. We also had a really interesting symposium at our Turkey Bend site. How many of you have been to Turkey Bend, which is just east of Lockwood Drive? Great, so many of you. We've had a couple meetings there, but this one focused on the graffiti, actually, that is in the warehouse. It's really a who's who of graffiti artists in Houston. So we wanted to get people's opinions as to whether or not they liked it, they didn't like it, if they wanted us to keep it or take it away. And tonight you'll see some images of the transformation of that site as well. So I'm just going to review the run of show tonight. After I'm ending, we're going to have our project team come up, and each team member is going to go through the projects that they're responsible for. After their presentations are done, we're going to show another short video, tell you about some upcoming events, and then we're going to adjourn and have a little reception in the back of the room or to the side of the room, and you can get up close with our project managers and ask them all your questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose Solis, and he is going to talk to us about our Parks and Green Space projects.
Thank you. I'm Jose Solis. I've been working on this project for about 6.5 years, so it's really exciting to tell you a lot of the stuff that we're actually making progress on. As Ann mentioned, there's different pieces of the project we're going to go through tonight. I'm going to walk through the green spaces of the project. The green spaces are really the heart of the plan. They're really what connect all the different pieces throughout the entire length of the project together. Tonight I'm going to talk about two of the major projects. Tony Marone Park, which many of you know is just right a few hundred feet north of where we are right now, and then Jaffa Creek Park, which some of you may not actually know, which is on the north side, across from Tony Marone, and it's a beautiful natural creek that connects down to the Bayou. Those parks will actually be connected by a pedestrian bridge, so they'll really function as one complete green space together. Excellent. So Tony Marone Park, it's an existing park. Like I said, it's basically in North York and the Bayou. We're roughly doubling the size of the park. But on top of that, we're really building on what's there. We're not going in and clear cutting everything. We're really building on the existing elements that are there. So, there's an incredible tree canopy that we're leaving in place. There's 2 sports fields that we'll maintain those sports fields. There's a few pavilions that we'll repurpose and refresh. And so, like I said, we're really building on what's there. And the other thing about this project is this is coming up very quickly. I mean, we're in permitting right now for this project, and we will be starting in a few months. So one of the first pieces of the project is what we call the Great Lawn, and this is really the piece that allows you as the community to connect to the Bayou. If you know the park now, the neighborhood is pretty cut off from the park, and it's really cut off from the Bayou. So there's going to be a large gathering space that essentially weaves through the entire park. And you can, have picnics and things like that, and fly a kite, frisbee, things like that. But it'll be really that direct connection all the way to the Bayou. And as I mentioned, we're also reusing a lot of the existing features. So if you know where the existing playground is, that'll be transformed into what we're calling Cypress Square, where we're taking that space and making it more like a Mexican plaza. We'll also have a major play area within the park that actually has a collection of different spaces for different uses and different kid ages. But it's very much a nature-focused park, or part of the park. And as Ann mentioned, we got input from the community. This is an example of it. When we were having kids draw things that they wanted to see in the park, one of them was actually an armadillo. So that's one of the things that we actually included in as part of this part of the park. There'll also be water gardens, and this is really an interactive playscape for kids, where there'll be pumps and streams and different fountains and things that they can really interact with and sort of push the water through different parts of this particular playscape. We really think this is going to be an incredible space for them. There's also a toddler area, so it's, like I said, it's for all different ages. And we're also looking at how we can reflect the history. So this is actually, that boat is sort of modeled after a snag boat that you would have seen on the Bayou maybe 100 years ago, sort of reflecting the fact that this area used to be the Port of Houston. There's also an existing pavilion out there that you can see here that we're actually building 2 very large barbecue pits, so we can actually host very large community barbecues for everybody in this room. But it's also set up so that you can just throw a bag of charcoal on there and grill for your family. And that'll be surrounded by a whole grove of picnic tables, umbrellas. It'll weave through sort of a natural area, and there also will be smaller. Actually, they're not even individual grills. They're grills, sort of 3 grills grouped together, so that you actually can see what your neighbor's grilling and start interacting with them. There's also an existing large metal warehouse there that'll be the what we're calling the event shed. This is basically the main kind of park pavilion. We'll be able to host movie night, concerts, things like that. There's also going to be accommodations for food trucks there, so we should be able to have food there on busy weekends. And now I'm going to talk more about Jaffet Creek. And like I said, this is maybe an area that some of you may not know as well. It's on the north side of the bayou. It'll be, like I said, connected to Tony Marone Park with a pedestrian bridge, and it's just east of Hurst Street. And it's a beautiful natural creek that exists in the area right now. And so this will be the sort of north connection, the main gateway from the 5th Ward to the Bayou and to the whole Bayou network. And we've actually just recently completed the first project. We worked with Tellefson, who's here tonight. We're going to thank them because they're working on most of our projects with us together. We just finished this project about a month and a half ago, and so it's open now. Next slide. And similar to Tony Marone Park, we kept what was there. So the existing trees, we left them in place, and then we enhanced them. So we new sidewalks, new lights, new furnishings. Next slide. There's what used to be a kind of just a gravel lot is now a beautiful lawn that people can play on. There used to be a mulch trail along the water, or along the creek itself. We've paved it so now it's accessible to everybody. And then it's anchored in the middle of that space by a large wildflower meadow. And so that space is on Clinton Drive at the very north, but the creek extends all the way to the bayou. And so the phase 2 of that is, it's the upcoming phase, we're calling it phase 2. And we're working on the design of that now. And it's really this beautiful, just breathtakingly beautiful creek. And the goal with this really is to, once again, keep this as, really take this and enhance it and set it up in such a way that we restore habitats, we really keep that green nature there, but then allow you to really occupy it. And then, the goal of this is really so that it's a space that you can get away from the hustle and bustle of daily life in this beautiful setting. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to the next team member, which is Omar Gonzalez. And he's going to talk to you about industrial sites.
Good evening, everyone. Omar Gonzalez, project manager of Buffalo Bayou Partnership. I'm going to talk to you about some of our repurposed industrial sites. We have several of these on the east side. You'll see them highlighted here in pink. We're going to start at Tony Marone, and then we'll go over to the silos, and we'll end up at Turkey Bend. Now, our goal is really to celebrate the industrial history, the industrial heritage of the area, and one of the ways that we see to do that is to refurbish some of these facilities and turn them into public spaces that are available for all. Next slide, please. So there's several of these structures in a parcel that will eventually be incorporated into Tony Marone Park. And Jose already touched on several of these. This is, on the left side, obviously, is the existing structure. And on the right-hand side here is it reimagined into this barbecue pavilion. On the same parcel is a warehouse that currently houses some of our boating operations. And on the bottom, you see it reimagined again as the event shed. Again, we're basically keeping the structure, we're exposing the structure, and in this case, adding a little bit more to create this more dramatic roof line that would act as a backdrop, you can imagine, for events at the park. And the last structure at Tony Marone is this another metal building, right? It's kind of the prototypical sort of building you would expect out there in an industrial area. The idea again is to strip off the skin to expose the metal structure, and we're repurposing that again, in this case for a children's play shed. Now we're going to go over to the silos. Many of you probably know these. These are a well-known, very visible landmark. They are just east of Jensen Drive. They are the site of a former concrete plant. And Buffalo Bayou has had events here, so some of you may have attended events there before. This is an image from Nightlight a few years ago. Now the idea is to take what's there and build on it. It is clearly a landmark. The idea is to make it sort of a jewel along what will be the trail on the south bank here, and leverage the fact that it is the natural landmark nature of it by building a small park around it. Next slide. There's a lot of structure on the site, not just the silos. There's a lot of concrete walls. There's this really interesting kind of sunken tunnel. The idea is to take what's there again and create new connections. In this case, you see we've cut a doorway in one of the walls and use these walls to sort of create these outdoor spaces that can be inhabited in different ways. And obviously green space for folks to use. This is another view showing some of those walls, creating new connections through that. The idea again is to embrace the history, the heritage that's there, but to make it safe and accessible for everyone. Now we get to my favorite project. The Turkey Bend site is the largest of our industrial sites that's part of the 10-year plan. Next slide, please. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the reason we call it Turkey Bend is because it sits on this natural oxbow in the bayou. So, I have a pointer. This is what was the original pathway of the original route of the bayou. At some point in the 1940s, it was bypassed by flood control. But this is Turkey Bend. This is navigation down here. And then we've got Lockwood over here, so it'll give you a little orientation on that. The major pieces of the complex are shown here. We've got some gantry cranes down here. We've got what we call the wharf shed, which is a warehouse down on the water. And on navigation, we have the navigation warehouse. Many of you are probably familiar with the site. We've had some events there and know that they are connected by this really cool tunnel. Next slide, please. There's a variety of spaces here, obviously, and they each lend themselves to be used in unique and interesting ways. And because of that, we don't think there's going to be a problem really activating the space. We've got some ideas of how that could be, but obviously the community is going to decide how it gets used. These are public spaces. So the first phase of this project is the navigation warehouse. It's a warehouse dating roughly from 1938. The Houston Public Library Hispanic History Research Center and Archives will occupy the eastern half of the building, and the western half of the building will be community-based businesses. Or basically there's lease spaces there that would be available for community-based businesses. Next slide, please. Both of those revolve around the central space. We call it the breezeway, but one of the things we're doing is we're creating a large opening on the navigation side. Next slide, please. And a large opening on the north side of the building, so we're going to get some nice cross ventilation here. But think of this as a large outdoor plaza with a roof, because we know how important shade can be during our Houston summers. Now what's really cool about this space is that, and you can see the start of the ramp right here, this gets us down to the wharf. This is the start of the tunnel, right? We're on the ramp going down. What I love about this picture is that it really shows the texture, the character of the building that we're working with. And we are doing our darndest to keep that character in the building, while also bringing it up to code and making sure that it's safe for people to use. The next phase of the project is just getting underway in terms of design. It's the wharf, and you can think of that as a park right along the water with direct access to the water for things like kayaking and canoeing. What's really nice about the site is because it is in an oxbow. This is still water. There's no current in it, there's no boat traffic, so we feel it's the safest place to really encourage this sort of activity in the bayou. Next slide, please. Now, if you guys drive up and down Navigation, you probably notice there's a lot of activity in front of this building. It is under construction, and this image shows some of the selective demolition that was done to remove things like, rotten pieces of roof and that sort of thing. Next slide. And also create some of the openings for the next phase of the building, if you will. Now, one of the interesting things is you'll notice there's graffiti on this brick that's being demolished. That's actually being demolished very carefully, and it's being stacked up on the side because we're going to keep that and repurpose it elsewhere in the building. So we'll get the sort of pixelated pattern from the graffiti bricks. It'll be pretty cool, I think. So I've spoken about the existing character of the east side, and Ian's going to talk about some of the new structures that are going on.
So supposedly this is a clicker too, so I'm going to figure this out. There's a lot of what goes into building a real community as a whole. And parks and green spaces are one of those things that are really, really passionate by a lot of people. But there's a lot of other components of when you build a community are necessary. One of those things is housing, and following this I'll mention and cover some of the infrastructure costs, the infrastructure projects. Often in these projects, we've mentioned it's a $310 million effort. A lot of those things, a lot of that money goes into things you'll never see, bulkheads, infrastructure, utilities, and all of that is the network, it's the lifeline between all of these projects. And early on, when we began the planning, it was incredibly impressive to hear the passion and the importance that people placed on housing, being able to stay in these communities, and being part of that. We've completed phase 1 of our housing. It's 80 units of family housing. We finished it with our partners earlier this summer. Began occupancy. It's about half occupied now, and there's about 10 units left. So it's been incredibly successful in its occupancy. The next slide. It's what you'd expect for any project throughout the city, anywhere you live. Fitness center, great kitchens, with monument signage, and it's tied to the Bayou through its graphics and colors and all of that. But additionally, next slide. It's part of a much larger plan. We call it Lockwood Park, or Lockwood on Buffalo Bayou. As you can see on the my right, your left, section 2 is that phase 1 housing. It fronts on the rest of the 18-acre site where we dedicated 10 acres to become a new park. And that park is framed by these housing sites. We have future housing that is planned to be senior, single family, as we move forward, which is all very tied to available funding. But what's amazing here is this park will have green spaces, playground, dog park, hike and bike trails, connectivity to, and utilizing these spaces for parking. It's creating this whole concept of a park. The other thing about this site is it will come online. It's currently under construction. It'll come online when we take Tony Rowe Park off. So we will maintain park space for the neighborhood, parks, playgrounds, and all of that. So this will be available at that time. It is under construction. You can see the work. There's a tremendous amount of utility and infrastructure work that goes here. But again, it's right up in front of the apartments. And so that adds eyes, that adds safety, that adds part of the community. It makes this space, and the design intended that this was their living room. Much like Jose and Baldemar mentioned about keeping what's there and building on it. And so the trails will weave through the existing landscape these trees will be cleaned up and all that, but we're preserving as much as we can here. I often say the dog park is actually a nature play for dogs. We're really trying to make it feel like they're getting to run around in the space that's been part of the community for a long time. And then these structures front on these spaces, the parks, and there's other infrastructure that's needed to make all this stuff work and bring it together, utilities, infrastructure. We heard from the community, this is great, but I don't want those cars driving down my street. I don't want them parking in front of our house and creating these challenges. So we took on the obligation of building that community that serves the needs of what we're bringing forward. And that includes this and other infrastructure. Marone Parkway is a former rail line that was a barrier from the community to the Bayou, along with these large industrial sites. We worked with Union Pacific, decommissioned this line and acquired the property, and we'll be developing a new street along that area, and what I call is a complete street. You'll see that in a minute. We also have Navigation Greenway, which we'll show you in a moment, and Lockwood reconstruction, which is currently underway right now. It's where the city's adding 10-foot sidewalks to the east and west side of Lockwood, and that will connect Lockwood Park to a future Navigation Boulevard. Marone Parkway, which is a street I mentioned that's on the former Union Pacific right-of-way, will become a very green thread that ties these projects together, creates these great amenities. It also creates large buffer zones between the neighboring residences that are there and opens up onto these the housing and other projects. But more importantly, not only does the street create connectivity, it also brings utilities, lighting, major storm infrastructure, increased sanitary, all the things that have been not included in the community and the development as this neighborhood has grown for not only today, but for tomorrow. Navigation Greenway, we're taking about a mile of Navigation Boulevard, working with our partner at the county, to create a, as we call, a realigned Navigation Boulevard. It's about 6-7 lanes wide right now. It'll be going to about 4 lanes each way with a tremendous green space in the middle. Primary reason for us is this gets us to the other sites. It creates an amazing amenity and connection for the neighborhood. And it creates about 5 acres of green space by doing this. Turkey Bend is the building here. And so as you can see, the opening that Baltimore mentioned, this green space will flow right through the building out to the waterfront. What's incredible about this site, it's the only place Buffalo Bayou connects Navigation Boulevard into the heart of the community. And then putting the bow on it is the trails and connections. That's what weaves all this together. That's what ties it all together and completes the picture. So as you see here, as we went from parks and green spaces, added those unique repurposed industrial sites, layered in the housing, layered in the infrastructure, the trails that Buffalo Bayou is delivering, and then we must never forget our partners that are creating other trails and connections to other parts of the neighborhoods, extending the connectivity out into the community. Of the most significant and largest ones of those are these pedestrian bridges. The one Jose talked about, connecting Tony Marone Park to Jaffa Creek Park, which basically connects both neighborhoods to over 50 acres of green space. There'll be a second bridge at Gregg Street as well. These trails and connections will line the bayou on both the north and south side, running through old industrial sites, connecting these properties together in that network that makes it all one. This trail will meander through many different sites and create unique green spaces and create really great respites along the way for everybody to enjoy. The additional components of this project is when we layer in our standards and amenities. Those standards and amenities are where Buffalo Bayou Park's trails on the west side of town are 10 feet wide. Our trails over here will be 13 to 15 feet wide. We heard from the demand of people walking on these trails and a bike flying by you and a stroller next to you that they need to be bigger. So we're delivering 50% bigger. These trails are lit, dusk to dawn. That's really important to us. Our trails are the only ones lit dusk to dawn. And this is because we know people work late, go to school early, and have rare times to recreate. So they're lit dusk to dawn for people to use them for multi-purpose. And then trash and benches and everything like that, signage to tell you where we go, our signage will encompass connections within the neighborhood, talk about the famous sites and all of that through the community. And as part of those trails, we're currently building the what we call the downtown gateway. It's the connection on the north side of the bay. And with our project, when I mentioned a significant amount of money goes into infrastructure, stabilization of these banks, the underlying infrastructure is where the money really is to protect those improvements for a long time. And you'll never see this stuff, but it's where the bulk of the money is. And we don't walk away when we're done. Buffalo Bayou, with its partners, have a maintenance endowment to maintain this, and we will maintain this in perpetuity to make this as good as it is decades from now as it is today.
All right.
With that,
I think we're done. Are you still going? So, as you can tell, connectivity is a major theme of this entire project. These neighborhoods north and south of the Bayou, the amazing Fifth Ward and Greater East End, they've literally been cut off from this waterway for decades. And so we got a group of community residents together from the Fifth Ward and the East End, and they created this video along with an Ethiopian artist named Ezra Wupe. And so we're going to premiere this video tonight with all of you. Notice the railroad that weaved in and out of the neighborhood? Our favorite thing over here, right? Railroads. Okay, so now it's time to celebrate. So over the next month, we have a number of events and festivities taking place, starting out on September 21st, where we're going to have a ribbon cutting at Javits Creek Park up in the Fifth Ward. On October 5th, we're celebrating and having a neighborhood party at our Lockwood on Buffalo Bayou housing site. And then on October 19th, we're having our annual KBR Kids Day at Tony Marone Park. And this will be the last KBR Kids Day that we have at the park because we're going to start construction right after that. So we hope all of you can come out and take part in these celebrations, and because we're really proud of all the accomplishments we've made. I have to say, I have worked with landscape architects and architects for the last 30 years, but always as consultants. I've never worked with them sitting outside my office door. And you all have no idea the amount of work that goes into these projects. So I really want to give a round of applause to our really dedicated and hardworking little project team. So now we're going to adjourn and go over and have a little reception, and you can go up and ask any of the project managers any questions that you have. But thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate this, and we'll be having these meetings on an annual